Hello and welcome to episode 193 of Thrive by Additive-Free Lifestyle. We are Tracy and Jo, and we're two sisters who are very, very passionate about asking questions and seeking information on things that make us curious. Thrive is a podcast show that will help you lower your toxic load, guide you through various stages of life, and give you permission to ask questions and seek advice on topics you may not yet understand. Today's episode is brought to you by our very own Additive-Free Lifestyle app. And you can find that app on all major app stores. Just search Additive-Free Lifestyle. Download it today to create some very family-friendly meal plans, save yourself some money, easy shopping lists, and have access to additive information right at your fingertips.
Literally at your fingertips.
Yeah,
it is a
right
very
there.
good app. Okay, today on the show, we are talking with Kristen from Spray-Free Farmacy. And we talk about how bad the fruit and veggie industry is. Is it actually okay to buy fruit and veggies from the supermarket? And what can we do if we do? Because we all need to at some point in time. Saving money and farming.
We talked about regenerative farming, saving money, hints and tips, lots and lots of hints and tips. Can't wait to share those with you.
Yes, and we've got a discount code for you as well. So head over to our website, additivefreelifestyle.com/episode 193 to get all the show notes and a coupon code additive-free, one word, for 10% off if you're on the Gold Coast or Brisbane, because that's where her fruit and veggie boxes are. But this episode is suitable to anybody listening anywhere in the world. You'll pick up a load of hints and tips. Thank you so much for joining us, Kristen. We're so excited to talk about the fruit and veggie industry and learn all the juicy knowledge from you. But before we do get started, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. I have been doing this for 8 years now. So when my second daughter was born, I was in a place of, I'd been looking for organic food for quite a while because I'd read a lot. Well, let me go back a little bit. So what happened to start with was a friend handed me this book called No Impact Man. And it was so inspiring because it was about this guy who was trying to live for a whole year with his family in New York with having no impact on the environment. And he delved into so many areas in the book, and one thing that really opened my eyes was what's being done to our food. I had no idea about any of this. I was in my 30s working in the city and eating a conventional diet. Anyway, I was quite sick at the time too. I had really bad irritable bowel syndrome for about 15 years. And when I read that book and realized what was being done to our food, like what was being sprayed on it, what was being added to it, which I know you know all about, I made the switch to an organic whole food diet, and my health issues improved literally within a couple of weeks. It was absolutely astounding to me because I'd been to doctors for years and had no help. So when that happened, I started watching a load of documentaries, started educating myself more and more, and launched my first business, which was Inspired Living Events. And I used to do documentary screenings, and we'd get 200 people down at Kangaroo Point once a month to watch an amazing documentary and talk about these kind of things. And one thing I knew they were all looking for was really good quality organic foods straight from local farmers. So after my second daughter was born, I was just in this open place. Whenever I've had children, I've had 2 babies, it was like I was just cracked wide open and receptive to things coming in from the universe. So I got this really clear message of what I needed to do, which was launch this business, because I had met a farmer and she already had this amazing quality produce. So I put the two together. I had a husband that was a delivery driver, didn't like what he was doing. So the two things kind of came together and Spray-Free Farmacy was born, and that was in 2015. So ever since then, we've been slowly building the business, starting off from literally delivering 3 boxes from the back of our car to now we do about 500 boxes right across Brisbane and the Gold Coast every week.
So good.
It's so good. I remember when you launched your business, because we had only just started ours as well. Like, we've been going for maybe a year and a half, and it was really still so new and almost a hobby to us. Like, you know, we were just sort of getting things going as well. And yeah, I do remember, because I remember getting a box about 8 years ago as well. So well done to grow it to where you are now.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. And I love the way that we've gone about it, you know, rather than upfront with a big investment and all the risk, we've just slowly added things every week. And we've just got a commitment to, like, how can we do it better? Literally every week we go, oh, we should add a text message system. We should, like, in the beginning, it was like, we should put labels on the boxes. We should do this. Every single week, it's just gotten a little bit better. And now we have a really amazing team of passionate foodies. And yeah, it almost runs without me having to do so much in it now, which is fantastic.
Do you know what I love the most about that is when you said, when we have a baby, like, we seem to be open to receiving so much more information, and it's so true. But I don't know why we wait till these big moments in our life, or when we're really sick, like you said. You know, we get to these stages, we allow ourselves to get to these stages before we go, I should be doing something about this. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah, and you see it all the time. I think it takes a big shake up. You know, sometimes
all the time.
It's like it's a cancer diagnosis. It's these big things that go, I can't continue the way I am. Or in my case, it was, well, yeah, I couldn't continue the way I was. That had been a long, long time. So I was looking for answers, but also something about giving birth, I think, just literally, like, it's like a spiritual upgrade, or something happens and you're just more connected, more open to everything. That was my
It's almost like you've got this other little person to look after, and you're like, oh, I might need to suss some information out here, because it's not just about me anymore. It's about somebody else. I should try and keep that person alive and well and healthy.
The things with us mums, though, is often we put ourselves last all the time, or a lot of the time anyway, and we do focus on these kids. But with what I love with your business is that we can access really great food still. Like, it's out there. We just need to be that bit curious. We need to look around. We need to get on the internet. We need to ask in local groups. You know, I'm in Tassie, Joe's in Queensland, and, you know, it's vastly different. But I've found little areas and little nooks and crannies, and it's spending, yes, sometimes a little bit more time to hunt around and find it. But with businesses like yours that are out there, it's just that makes it so easy. I wish there was something more like that in Tassie.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I set out to do in the beginning, because when I started, like, after I read that book and made the switch, it was really hard to get organic food. I used to have to drive quite a distance to get to one of the only organic shops in Brisbane, and honestly, half the time the food on the shelf was rotting. It was really poor quality. And really expensive. So I would dream all the time about just being able to rock up to a farm that didn't use any sprays and go, can I just get fresh food straight from the farm? I wanted to know where it was coming from. So
important.
Yeah. When I met Kel, it just kind of all aligned.
A lot of Australians or people around the world do want to know where their food is coming from. And it's really important to a lot of us to understand that, especially with meat, but also with our fruit and veg. So talk to us the difference around spray-free versus certified organic.
Yeah, so I mean, certified organic is wonderful, right? And it is done by, we've got a few different bodies, but mostly Australian certified organic is what operates in Australia. So to become certified organic, a farm has to go through quite a lot of stringent testing processes. They do a lot of soil testing, which is wonderful. You know, you want to get the answers. You want to know for sure that this food is organic. But that takes years, and it costs thousands of dollars, the whole process. So while that is wonderful to have, and many of our farmers do have it, so probably about 50% do, we also wanted to be able to support the little guys. So we get some of our produce from backyards as well. So people who don't, are never going to use chemicals because it goes against everything they believe in. They know how to grow with good quality soil and compost, and are passionate about growing that fresh food. So we offer the ability to support them as well, rather than just limiting ourselves to only certified organic. Because those people are never going to pay thousands of dollars and go through that process to get that piece of paper.
Yeah. And sorry, just to keep going on that theme, sorry, Jo, is it true that even with certified organic, they are still allowed to use some not so good things, even though they're certified organic? Is that true?
They are, yeah. Well, they are allowed to use some sprays, but they are organic sprays. So they are natural things that you would find, that aren't harmful. So they do sometimes use those in moderation. So even some of our smaller farmers might use an organic caterpillar spray at the worst points in the year, but most of them have other methods in place, like good bugs for bad bugs. They do fruit fly traps where they, use the pheromones of the female, and they put it on a piece of sticky board, and the males are all attracted to it and they get caught like that. There's lots of little techniques that they use. Plus, when you have really good quality soil, those plants, like that come from that soil, are more resistant to bugs.
Interesting.
Okay. I wanted to ask about soil, but I'll ask you that a little bit later, because first I want to ask, how bad is it? How bad is the industry really? Because I think we go into the supermarket and we buy all our fruit and veggies, but how bad are they?
Yeah, I don't think many people are really aware of the depth of it. Australia is actually one of the heaviest users of pesticides in the world.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it's really sad state of affairs, honestly, because there are a whole bunch of chemicals that are used here that are actually banned in other countries. That have got terrible health consequences and environmental consequences. And unfortunately, the regulatory bodies here are doing nothing about it. They're still allowed to use them. So to answer your question, there's something like 8,000 different types of pesticides that are being used in Australia all the time on conventional crops. So, and it's not just the sprays to get rid of the bugs, it's the toxic chemical fertilizers that are going into the soil as well. So it's not just like a spray you could wash off. It's in the soil, it's in the plant, and it's destroying the microbiome that nourishes that plant and that gives you a good quality plant.
And depending on the state you live in as well, like I know here in Tassie, everything is sprayed before it comes into Tasmania, even if it doesn't necessarily have like a high risk of bugs, because we don't have fruit fly. And I think South Australia might be a little bit the same. I think so. It would also depend on what state you live in as to how much extra on top of all the other stuff they've put on it. Just for living in that state, they spray everything that comes into Tasmania.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
To get an organic box into Tassie, to get it passed without it being fumigated is about $200.
Wow.
That's why organic produce, and you're right, Trace, it is South Australia, and I think even WA is
some parts in WA.
Yeah. So be careful. So to touch on your topic of the soil, can you go into that a little bit deeper as well? Because I know that we're lacking in a lot of magnesium and a lot of vitamins, and everything is just getting way over farmed. So can you touch on that?
Yeah, sure. So the soil, there's a lot of really good documentaries on this, like Polyface Farms, Biggest Little Farm, and they all touch on the fact that the nutrients in the plant all come from the soil. So if you want to have a healthy plant, you want to have a healthy, good, nutritious nutrient dense food plant, it needs to come from the soil. And the soil contains all of those beautiful little microbiomes, which is made up, like lots of insects are vital to this construction of a healthy microbiome in the soil. So when you spray, it doesn't just affect the bad bugs, it affects the good bugs that are, you know, building the quality of that soil. And one of the really bad consequences of this industrial method of farming is they constantly stripping the soil, like they're stripping the top layer of the soil again and again. And they say we only have something like 55 years left of soil. So if they continue going along this road, then we will get to a point where it is not viable to grow anything in the soil anymore, because it's been stripped bare. It's been stripped of all the nutrients that are needed to grow anything. So that's why, you know, regenerative farming in particular is so important right now. We need more people switching to this method of farming and actually working to build the nutrient density of the soil so that we actually have some and that our children can grow food in the future.
Is regenerative farming where they like rotate the crops, obviously, but do they rotate animals through it as well? So like, you know, they might have cows in that paddock and then grow a crop, and then the next year have, I don't know, sheep or something. Like, is that regenerative farming? Is that sort of that rotation of stuff? Because
so it's kind of, it's founded, I think, by Joel Salatin, who's a farmer in the States, and his film, there's a film called Polyfaces that is about his farm, and it's so inspiring because he took this old farm that had been a conventional farm that was deteriorated and run down, and he's turned it into this incredible food bowl where he's feeding hundreds of families and restaurants and everything around his farm. And it is drought proof, it's weatherproof, like it can withstand all of the different things that nature can throw at you, because the soil is so lush and so nutrient dense that it's you know, when it rains, rather than it just washing away the topsoil and causing so much damage, it soaks in, it holds it. You know, and then they don't need rain very often because there's so much water under the soil. And this happens because of the rotation that, particularly in this film, they focus on chickens, pigs, and cows. And they rotate the animals across the paddocks because the manure from each different type of animal and the activities of that animal, so the scratching and the way that they eat the grass, the way that they move around, it all helps to build that nutrient density in the soil. And another vital part of regenerative farming is about keeping the soil covered. You know, they say Mother Nature doesn't like to be naked, doesn't like to be stripped bare. And that, unfortunately, is what our industrial food system does. You know, whereas regenerative farming, they keep it covered.
It's so important to understand all this, isn't it? Like, I know we didn't, and we lived on a farm. We lived on a dairy farm as teenagers, and I mean, it was a dairy farm, so it wasn't a rotating crop farm, but there were potato farms in the area, and they just grew potatoes every year. That was it. There was nothing the next. They would let their crops, animals go through to, once the potatoes had been dug up, and the animals would go through and get what was left or whatever. But next year there was more potatoes. So you imagine what that farm looks like today. I'd hate to even think. Actually, I think it's been bought out by pine plantations, like pine furniture plantations. So those farms I don't even know that exist anymore. But yeah, like with a dairy farm, like we grew up on a farm. And I know Mum used to spray the blackberries. I know, like, it was certainly not an organic farm, but we definitely grew up appreciating where food came from, I think, more than most. So if I'd have grown up just like my kids, I may not have appreciated where food came from as much as when you live on a farm. And so I'm not a vegan at all, and I don't think I could ever live that way. And I'm not, if that's your choice, absolutely fine, go for it. But understand also what this is doing to our crops and what this is doing to Mother Earth and what this is doing to nature. And if you need to live as a vegan, great, that's all great. But I guess without being controversial, but maybe a little controversial, there is a need, and there is a high need for animals to help regenerate the earth and to do it naturally. And I think that's really important to understand.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's some really good stories around that. I know there's a lady in the States called Leor Keith, and she was a very staunch vegan for a long time. And she decided, she was so passionate about not killing animals that she set out to create her own farm, basically. And she wanted to do it all without any animal inputs into the soil. But she discovered pretty quickly that she couldn't. She needed manure, she needed the blood and bone, she needed all of those inputs from animals to make her plants thrive. So she did a complete turnaround, and now isn't a vegan any longer, because she had for her, she realized that, you know, if animals need to be part of this process, then she felt that there was a place for eating them as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is another podcast episode that we will do on meat and understanding and appreciating where that life has been given for us to be able to feed, or for our plants to be able to thrive. But I just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
I want to ask, if we can't access beautiful spray-free produce, I've heard of the Dirty Dozen and washing your fruit and veggies in a bit of bicarb and vinegar. Like we've just spoken about how they're grown through the soil, etc. So I understand that plant itself is not the best that it can be. But if we do need to buy something, is there a way to try and get rid of the pesticides somehow?
Minimize it somehow?
Well, I would prioritize. It's tricky because I know, and you do find yourself in these situations, especially when you travel. Yeah. You know, it's hard to get access to good food. But I think the good news is there's been quite a few studies done where people have switched from a conventional to an organic diet, and they've tested them. You know, they've tested the pesticide levels in their blood before and after, and they've shown that even just a week of eating organic food can make a massive difference. So I kind of think along the lines of, well, sometimes you just have to make do. And it also comes down to psychology, right? If you know when you get home, you're going to eat a lot better, you're going to make better choices where you can, then you just accept that this is what I have access to now. And I'm going to believe as I eat it that this is the best food, that this is going to nourish my body. It's not going to harm me. So in short, you know, if you do go down the Dirty Dozen route, like it is helpful. So the Clean 15, I would prioritize choosing those types of vegetables rather than, so for example, if I go somewhere and order a juice and I know it's not organic, I won't choose apples because they're one of the most highly sprayed. But if you consider pineapples have a thicker skin, what else is on that list? Like if I was going to buy food, avocados have a thicker skin, so they're less likely to contain a lot of pesticides in them.
We went to Kununurra and we were up there for the sandalwood plantations to have a look at them, but next to them were a lot of corn, and there were planes flying over daily, the guy said, from the sandalwood farm. Oh yeah, they come in every day.
Oh gosh.
And they hated it because the sandalwood farms are all organic, not certified, but they use goats and they are really regenerative. Really, like the doTERRA sandalwood farms are so regenerative, it's not funny. And going against the norm of other sandalwood farmers in the area, and they were saying like they get like looked at like in the pub. Can you imagine Kununurra, a small town, you know, everyone knows everyone, and they're like the weirdos over here doing their regenerative farming with goats and different things. But yeah, the cotton up there, oh my god. Anyway, whole nother story on cotton and podcast. Like, yeah,
I didn't realize corn was so bad though for them to have a plane that flies over every single day.
Here's what happened. It was so bad that it killed all the, what are those really big like dragon lizards? The big dragon lizards.
Like the monitor lizards.
Yeah, those ones. So it killed off all of those. It killed all the snakes. He said like we used to see snakes all the time out on the sandalwood plantations, but they had killed off all of those, not the sandalwood, but the people, the farmers, through what they were spraying in and around the area, and it had killed off all this sort of wildlife. It was awful. And finally they said they're starting to see on their plantation, starting to see baby dragons come back and baby snakes, and like they're really excited about it. But it's yeah, all these, isn't that terrible?
I think the toads helped with that as well. They had a big toad infestation.
The cane toads,
came
yeah,
through, and then they ate
too.
the toads as well. But not great. Okay, so the Dirty Dozen, Clean 15. We'll put those details in our show notes. And how do you feel about the bicarbonate vinegar wash? Like, can that help?
I don't think so. No, I've read a lot of studies where they have tested before and after using all different kinds of washes, including that, but ones that you can buy on the shelf. And really, I don't think it makes a great deal of difference, because at the end of the day, the pesticides are also inside the plant. You know, it's not just on the skin. It's not just going to wash off.
If we're washing off dirt and any residue that's left on there, though, that's got to be at least somewhat helpful.
Well, I guess so. Yes, it can't hurt. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And God knows who's touched it. Oh.
Yeah. I often think about that. Who's been to the toilet before they put the apples up on the shelf?
Yeah, who didn't wash their hands very well?
Yeah. Well, we still want people eating fruit and vegetables. I'm sure you can agree with that. But we just need to be getting some better choices where we can. And thank you to you and your company at Spray-Free Farmacy, because it's so easy. Like, you spend over $200, it's free delivery. As you said, Gold Coast, Brisbane. I'm sure there's other places around. Another good thing that I do as well, especially when I lived in Tassie, was get onto Marketplace on Facebook. And there's so many people selling apples and raspberries and whatever's in season, because they've just got so many. So that has been really useful.
I was going to touch on that, in season and frozen as well. So buying in season and buying frozen is a really great way, one, to lower your costs, because sometimes frozen can be cheaper than fresh, and to still eat organic, or at least spray-free is a really good option for some people. I know I buy a lot of organic frozen fruits for smoothies and everything. And when it's in season, I will buy frozen fruits to fill my freezer so that I can get through winter when the berries and things aren't in season anymore.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We have a freezer full of frozen bananas at all times for the smoothies. And yeah, frozen berries, things like that. We do a lot of those as well.
What other hints and tips would you have for people to save money and also eat better?
I think the Marketplace one is a great one. I've seen a lot of people selling their backyard produce on there too. Grow your own as much as possible. I think leafy greens and herbs are one thing that is so easy to grow in your own backyard. You know, even if you're in an apartment, you can have a couple of little pots, have them on the windowsill, grow some things like that. And buy in bulk where you can. If you can afford it, you definitely save a lot. We do offer a lot of bulk buys that save people money. And just prioritize. I mean, meal planning, obviously, you guys have got a great app for that, to meal plan and get your shopping list, and don't waste food. I mean, if you look at the stats around that, it's staggering the amount of food that the average household throws away. If we all just utilize it a bit better, the money would go a lot further.
A lot of people don't realize what they can freeze. So I was able to planted 3 zucchini plants, and they went ballistic this past summer. I had zucchinis everywhere. I couldn't even give them away. Like, my daughter was like, "No, we've got enough, Mum. You can keep your zucchinis, you weirdo." But so what I did was I grated them and I froze them, grated. And so now when I make a curry or a stew or a casserole, or I don't know, anything along those lines, spag bowls, stuff like that, I just empty a bag of that frozen zucchini. And yeah, it's a little bit mushy, but it goes through those wet dishes, I suppose, fine. I wouldn't put it into a cake as an example or something like that. But, and even onions. So from my bulk place, where it's different to how you do yours. So all different, but I was able to order onions and carrots and a few other things that I've frozen as well, like grated up and frozen. So don't be scared to freeze things, because I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, I had no idea you could freeze onions." Like, yes, you can. Just grate them up first.
Yeah,
there's lots, so many different things that you can do.
talking about wastage, how come you didn't email me and say, are you sure you need that much fruit? Because I got a fruit box and then I got a veggie and fruit box and then I bought some extra fruit. I don't know. I wasn't obviously looking at my order and then it all came to my door and I was like, holy cow. I don't know. I can't eat this much fruit. There was so much fruit. Like I'm talking, I reckon I got 35 apples and about 25 bananas. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want this going to waste. So I ended up stewing a heap of the fruit and made ice creams with it.
Mm-hmm.
I went to juice and then my juicer has broken in my removals. And so I couldn't juice. So I was like, oh, how else am I going to use it? Took a whole box of fruit to netball rather than to have lollies. I'm like, yeah, have some apples and oranges and watermelon. But yeah, you're right, Trace. Like there's many different ways that we can save
We need
money.
to go old
and,
school again.
Yeah, preserving, salting, jam, doing what Nan and Grandma used to do and preserve it all.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that's coming back, which is wonderful. I think COVID and all the lockdowns was a really good incentive for people to, like, people started to really prioritize Australian and local businesses and have like this new level of appreciation for that kind of stuff, and the time to ferment things and jar things. And
like it's not actually that hard either, is I want to stress to people, it is not hard to make sauce and to make jams and to make relishes and chutneys. Like, yeah, you might need a little bit of extra time in your weekend or day, but it's not hard. And that's the difference. Like none of it is technical and hard and like, oh my God, I've got to work out this or that. Nope, you just throw it in a pot and you boil it away. Like none of it is hard. So if you haven't tried canning or you haven't tried preserving or you haven't tried making sauce or jams or any of those types of things, give it a go. Even sourdough, like none of it is hard. It just takes a little bit of time. And that's what some of us don't have an excess of, but it's worth it to put that little bit of time in. It's so, so worth it.
Absolutely. And it's so much more rewarding to open up your own jar of something you fermented or canned. Like there's such love in that, I think, when you give that to your family and go, I made this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We do have a discount code for those of you guys that are in Brisbane and the Gold Coast, which is Additive-Free, 10% off. So thank you so much for offering that to our listeners. And have you got anything else you'd like to add?
I think we covered a lot of really good stuff there. I love the tips around, some waste saving, and I think a lot of people, there's a good opportunity to go down that route and to put a lot more love into food and to feel the nourishment of knowing that what's on your plate, you know where it's come from, what's been put into it. Like that to me is a foundation of health.
I have got a question that I just thought of, and you would know the answer to this better than me because I haven't done it. When you are trying to find a place to buy your produce for your boxes, so you're obviously calling farmers direct. Can you do that as just as a person that's not a business to try and get a bulk lot of tomatoes or whatever you're trying to get?
Yeah, some farms you definitely could. There are some that
Google, you just kind of Google, watermelon farms.
Yeah, we have most of our farmers listed on their website. But there's places like Mount Cotton Organic Farm out in Redlands, they have a little shop. There's others that might have a little honesty box or something like that. There's one up at Tambourine where we get kiwi fruit from. They have an honesty box out the front. So yeah, just phoning around. But the difficult thing is a lot of our farmers, and one of the issues we didn't really touch on is the aging population of farmers. The average age is around 60. So we do need a lot more young farmers coming in because that's a real issue. But a lot of them are hard to get hold of by phone, to be honest, because they're out in the field. They're out growing the food. So, some people do. Some people definitely drive around and go out to the farms, but it's not easy. That's
Yeah.
why we do what we do, you know, because we wanted to make it easy, and we tried it ourselves for a while and it was really hard.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
if you're lucky enough to live near one, you know, that would be incredible.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, coming from Hobart, there's so many farms around the area, and I've never contacted them to see if you can get direct. I just thought, hey, you know, do a lot of them do that? So that's just interesting.
Some would, yeah. I know there's some
Awesome.
great places too. Where do we go? Down Northern Rivers, back of Byron Bay. There's some streets around there where everyone's growing food and everyone's got an honesty box out the front.
Oh,
I
so
love
good.
those kind of places.
So good.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We're going to put all the details from this show in our show notes. You can find that over on our website. And any questions, just reach out. But yeah, thanks once again.
Thank you. So nice to chat to you both.